Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, December 14th of 2025. Now, first thing I want to do is just thank you guys for your amazing response to not just my video last week, but my email, and in particular, the story and experience I shared about my adopted sister and how she came into a beautiful journey I had last year. And it felt like a really beautiful thing to share that might give people kind of an insight more into my journey, where I'm at, and maybe just the motivation that we all need to walk us through these times. So thank you so much for the beautiful emails that I received this past Sunday. Now, I had some interesting things that have really been flowing into me for the last couple of months, but some beautiful ideas solidified this week in my journaling that I just felt like I'm actually really excited to share with you. So, the very first thing that I wrote is to take your eyes off the chaos and see the beauty. You know, we've had some really, really beautiful, extraordinarily warm weather here in Salt Lake City. We already have snow in the mountains. Many people would say we need a lot more snow, and we're coming into the time of year when we get most of our snow, which is January and February. But we've had a very mild winter, or December so far. And the walks that I've been going on in the middle of the day, I have this beautiful 5 mile walk that I've told you about 100 times. And the weather is so spectacular, and just enjoying the beauty rather than just sucking into the headlines of all the chaos that's happening, right? So I wrote, take your eyes off the chaos and see the beauty. Stop looking at the quote headlines and think you are informed. Okay. So this is something that I think is a trap we all fall into. We're watching the headlines of all the stuff that the algorithms feed us, and we think that we're informed by seeing these headlines. And to me, we need to realize that we don't, for the most part, we can't see the entire picture unless we get quiet and get still and tune into ourself, our higher self, and all of that, right? So, so that was the first couple thoughts. And then I wrote this. I feel like there's vibrational recalibrations that are happening so big right now. This is really, really, really true for me. And I spent the rest of the week journaling about this because as I've shared many times over these last few years, especially since 2020, there's been a big shift in my friendships, my relationships. Um, there's been such a massive shift, and there's even another shift that's happening right now. Even the last year and the last few months in particular have felt like these recalibrated energetic shifts in my relationships in particular, on all the stuff, the friendships, the networking with people in my workspace, the family relationships. And because I have such a massive family, it's interesting to watch them shift. And so I just really thought, well, what is this, and why does it feel like a good shift rather than a sad shift? Okay, so vibrational recalibrations are happening so big for me right now. And then I wrote, by tackling the soul crushing challenges I've tackled, it feels like an elevation. Okay. It doesn't feel, let's see, what did I write of that? So it feels like an elevation of my frequency, not in an egotistical way at all. So even more old connections are falling away. And I sat with that sentence for a minute and I thought, how does that make me feel? Because I haven't felt sad about it. I felt more curious. It's been really curious for me. It doesn't make me feel bad, oddly. I don't feel like I'm abandoning anyone or anything. I don't feel like there's an abandonment of anyone or anything, you know. It feels like evolution. My energy is different, so different. I feel like I can't tune into the energy of some people, and that they can't tune into mine anymore as well. That's just what I'm feeling. It feels more like freedom. And this is where I get to stay curious, because it's not like this is an egotistical thing. It feels like so curious to me when it's like tuning into a different channel. It's like being on a different station. You change your station and you literally cannot hear what the other channels are doing. it's, if that feels right. So it feels more like freedom. No more small talk and no more draining obligations. That's what it has felt like to me. Um, and then I'll run into one of those draining obligations that now are happening a lot less often, and I go, okay, this is why this feels like freedom to me, because I don't I I don't have to do that anymore. I mean, I've always detested small talk. I've always been able to do it, but it's actually heightened to a point where, um, short of being rude, I just can't do it. I'd rather sit in beautiful silence with someone that I'm having a conversation with, when there's maybe moments of lapses. But when I'm in a soul connection and I'm talking to, like, I've actually reconnected with a couple of people just this past week that have reached out, that don't live near me, that I've had these beautiful conversations with, that just feel heightened already because there's an evolution in my energy field. It's so interesting to describe. So right now it doesn't feel like isolation. It feels like liberation, and it feels unapologetic. That's what, in fact, what I wrote is this. Right now it doesn't feel like isolation. It feels like liberation unapologetically. And then I wrote this. It feels like higher consciousness demands that we graduate. You know, it doesn't feel like we just go, okay, now I'm vibrating in higher consciousness. Um, and and then I'm gonna stay there. But what happens is you graduate. There are layers, and you graduate again, and then you graduate again. It's like going through school. You know, you graduate from kindergarten, you graduate from grade school, you graduate from junior high. All of these steps they put us through in education, it's like that. And I think that even then, you keep graduating into different levels, because to me, that's one of the reasons we're here, right? And then I wrote, I'm done with ego games and roles, and I'm done with the need for validation. I don't need anyone to ever validate me. Like, and I think that comes not just with the craziness of our times and all the things that we're going through an evolving, rising in consciousness humanity, a collective chaos we get to experience. I believe that it's part of my own personal journey, and I'm sure you can relate with this. And partly it's my age, all the things I've lived through and all the things I've experienced and all the books I've read and the personal growth. And I went on a walk yesterday with a neighbor who's she's one of my favorite neighbors, and it's been 2 or 3 months since we actually got together and walked. They just went on a big trip with their family, and so we walked yesterday. And that's one of the things that we talked about, is how we can feel this shift of of this higher frequency, and we no longer need validation. And then one of the things that I brought up was the Four Agreements, that book. And she I had mentioned it to her before, but I mentioned she hadn't read it yet, so she's like, I'm going to pick that up this week, because there's the one of the agreements is to not take anything personally and don't make assumptions. And there's so many things in there that you start to realize that we're waiting for validation from other people. So I wrote, I'm done with ego games and roles and the need for validation. And I think I've been out of that need for a really long time, but I think there are layers that still come up when we feel like someone needs to give us a little bit of accolades. I think that's why we still, post on social media. I opted out of Facebook in 2020. And I used to get validation from that. The pictures I would post, and look where I'm traveling, look at this great food I'm eating, and look at how great I look in this picture. I mean, that was such an easy opt out for me. And I'm sure many, many of you can relate to that as well. And then I wrote this: I want and I'm ready for soul sovereignty, right? I am ready for relationships that are about growth. I want every relationship, whether it be with a member of my family, my friendship base, the base of people that I get to communicate with, in the line of work that I do. I am ready for soul sovereignty, and I want relationships that are about growth. And then I feel like this is what I wrote. It feels like the karmic contracts, they feel like they're dissolving. And I think that this is where when you raise your frequency and you no longer vibrate into where you're no longer feeling obligated to do all this stuff. It feels like you're dissolving karmic contracts. It takes bravery. Okay. So here's what landed in me, because I think this is really important for people who are along the same just path that I am. And it's not, like I said, it's not about being better than anyone. It's about staying curious and humble. Those were the two things that kind of said, you get to stay curious about this. This is not about, oh, look, I'm on a higher timeline. No, 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 no. It's a different timeline. It's just different. So here's what I realized. The chaos of humanity's upgrade. Okay, there's an upgrade happening collectively for humanity. Okay, it feels like I'm a little or a lot ahead of the curve. Okay, I see so many people clinging to the old, the thoughts, the ideas, and everything. I still see that. I still see a lot of that. I see that in my own family. Okay, and what I do is I get to choose every day authenticity over fear. And then I wrote energetic sovereignty is the ultimate power move, right? Because what I think we get to take advantage of, we get to ride this wave of the collective rise of consciousness. And if you can recognize that you get this, there's this opportunity that's happening, that you get to take advantage of this high energy. Although it might feel like upheaval and chaos, and a lot of that is happening, but because of the rise of humanity at such a massive scale, that's why the chaos and the upheaval and the overwhelm, and like, you look at what humanity's doing all around the globe, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So energetic sovereignty is the ultimate power move. That's what I was like. That is, it feels like if you can literally take sovereignty over your own energetic frequency, that's it. That feels like then you get to go from here, right? So then I wrote this: quantum entanglements are unraveling naturally. That's what that feels like is happening for me. The quantum entanglements, because I'm raising my frequency and doing the things that have been so challenging this year. Then all of these quantum entanglements that I have felt obligated to, they're just unraveling naturally. I don't have to do anything. Okay, so it feels like old frequencies and chords feel like they are breaking down with no drama. Doesn't have to be any drama. I don't have to say anything, or that's what I have found is the most beautiful part, is that there's just a peaceful quiet. And I think there's a place where I feel like I am right now, that's a necessary isolation, that doesn't feel sad or lonely. It feels congruent, and it feels necessary, almost for not even like healing, but for just acclimating my body to the new frequency, if that makes sense. Okay, so old frequencies and chords feel like they are breaking down with no drama. So then I wrote this: what used to feel essential now feels like it's optional. Like, think about the things that you would say yes to and the obligations that you would partake in. And I'm not saying just ditch everything that feels inauthentic all at once. And you guys know I'm not talking about stuff like that. There really reaches a point where I feel like I am right now, where the obligations that I maybe felt I had, they're no longer even seeking me out. It's so interesting to describe. This is where the curiosity is so amazing, to keep that openness and the curiosity about it. So essential now seems optional, not out of rejection. Okay, my time and my energy feels more aligned. I can amplify rather than dilute. So now I can amplify what I'm here to amplify. I don't have to spread it all out and dilute it. Okay. Because so many are awakening, it seems like a massive wave of opportunity for personal upgrades. And then I wrote yes and underlined it and put a big exclamation. Okay. Because so many are awakening, it seems like a massive wave of opportunity for personal upgrades. I mean, let that sink in for just a second. You have an opportunity right now that feels like not just once in a lifetime, but once in multiple many lifetimes. Like, many people talk about a 12,000 year cycle that we're in, that we're riding the crest of it. We're at the wave of this beautiful chaos that's allowing us to have these personal upgrades. Okay. It feels like this. And I love these two words together: unity, consciousness. It feels like the consciousness is uniting, right? So it feels like, rather than being loyal to just your tribe, your culture, your religion, your whatever, and I know that might trigger some people, but it feels more like we don't have to just be loyal because that's what's expected of us. And like I said, not out of rejection. These things that you used to think are essential are optional, and not out of rejection. Okay, just out of a frequency change. That's all it is. So then I wrote this, because there is an emptiness that comes along with being in a different frequency. Not a better. It's not about being better. It's about a different frequency. This emptiness doesn't feel permanent. Okay, I wrote that and I sat with that for a minute. It feels like this is an important step in the evolution of when you fully vibrate in a different frequency. There's an emptiness, because what used to fill up your time and your energy and all of your thoughts and your overthinking, all of that, once you dial into a different frequency, there is an emptiness. But it doesn't feel permanent, because it's not permanent. Okay. It feels like absolutely space clearing. And this is the thing that, as I was walking every single day this week, I could literally feel lighter. I have felt like I have been clearing space with these really rough things that I've been doing. If now I'm over the rough stuff. I am out the other end of the rough stuff, which is really brilliant to say. And I feel like I've just had this massive energetic clearing. It's like releasing some energetic parasitic force, the different forces that have different things, situations, relationships, things that come in and knock your world over. And then you go, oh, I see why that happened. And the space is now clearing. Okay. So let me read all that again. This emptiness doesn't feel permanent. It feels like absolutely space clearing, like an individual reset button. Like I have my own reset button, and I reset it. I reset it really hard, which I love. So here's what I want. A soul family who matches my energy. Effortless connections, deeper and more meaningful and more fulfilling. That's what I want. I think that's what we all want. And this is where I think we need to be. We need to continue on being brave and courageous, because when you have the energies that are circulating and pulsing from Mother Earth, where they are right now, this is the opportunity to make these massive changes. And they're not for the faint-hearted, but like, one of my favorite things to say is to jump off a cliff and build your parachute on the way down. And I've used this in talking about, the different businesses that I started even before I did the business I'm doing now, which is, this is now my sole purpose. But I've always said, you can't wait for the environment to be perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. You have to jump off a cliff and build your parachute on the way down. And this is where you take a risk, right? You take a risk. So I want a soul family who matches my energy, my effortless connections. I want them to be deeper, more meaningful, and more fulfilling. And I think you just basically set a standard, and that's it. So then I wrote this, because this kept coming in. I've already said it a few times, is an important thought: stay curious and humble. This is not about being better than anyone. It's quite the opposite. This is about my own individual soul journey. That's it. That's it. That's what that's about. So then I thought, you know what, I need to bring in some questions, okay? Because it's been a couple weeks since I've had any good questions. And so I sat down with this and I wrote down some questions. Some of them might be a little rough to hear. And I just preface that because let's just see what you think. So these are really good questions to ask yourself, ponder on for a minute. And if you feel so inclined, take a moment this week and maybe journal on it. And, we've got a week and a half, a little more than a week and a half until Christmas. This is a beautiful time for connections. And this is a really good time, I think, for evaluating the frequencies and the energies of what you let in. And it doesn't have to, like I said, this is simply raising your own frequency, because then it changes the relationship you have automatically. And then you get to choose, because it's not about cutting people out just because right? So here's the first question. What if the people fading from your life aren't losses, but proof you've outgrown the simulation that you or they are trapped in? Okay, so it's not about, oh, what have I lost? And I will tell you, that is so huge for what I have personally experienced, because it makes me curious that some of the relationships that I felt were super close, um, they they don't feel like a loss. Okay, it feels like it's proof that I've outgrown the simulation that they're trapped in. And that might sound harsh, that they're trapped in something that I'm not now, and I don't mean it that way. Okay, so then this question, um, in a world that is feels like it's been crumbling in 2025, why cling to mismatched relationships or family ties that dim your inner fire? Aren't you just enabling their stagnation? You're just staying a part of, you get to set this example. You get to light the way. Okay. So then this question, if your vibration upgraded overnight, would you mourn the low frequency friends who can't keep up, or celebrate the ruthless pruning of your own energetic garden? That's a powerful, powerful question. Okay, so then this, are quote, quote, close friends and family really your friends, or just karmic anchors holding you back from quantum leaping to timelines where you thrive unapologetically? Who wouldn't want that? Isn't that why we're here? Isn't that why we're in this physical body and this physical experience? Aren't we here to do that? Okay. And then this, what hidden fears make most people avoid the hard things that maybe you are conquering, right? Could it be they're terrified of the freedom that follows detachment? Think about that. Are you afraid of the freedom that follows after you detach? Because then what? As a person who, and I've said this many times too, I'm a full grounded Taurus. And these last couple years, and this year in particular, I've had to blow up my foundation. And the most important thing to me as a grounded Taurus who likes stability and security, and I've got food storage, I've got some other, I've got little things diversified so that I can feel safe and protected, and my foundation has been blown up this year in particular. Right? And it's interesting. It's so interesting. I can't even describe. Okay. So then this question, in higher consciousness, is loyalty to bloodlines a virtue or a 3D illusion designed to keep you vibrating low and controllable? You get to decide how attached you are. How attached you are. And if the choice to stay attached, that's fine. There's no judgment. There's no judgment in what you choose in this journey in your own individual lifetime. There's no judgment at all. That's the whole beautiful thing. So then this question, why romanticize missing people who no longer resonate? Isn't that just nostalgia for a version of yourself that you have mercifully outgrown? Some of these are really, really big questions, because we have been conditioned to be very sentimental and very attached to old things that don't serve us. And, it's fascinating. Okay, and then what if your energetic upgrade is a cosmic middle finger to societal norms, proving that true power comes from ditching the dead weight of incongruent relationships? Okay, that's true power. What if that's true power? And then this last question. In the multiverse of possibilities, okay, are you bold enough to ask, have I already leaped timelines, leaving echoes of my old self and old connections behind in lower realities? maybe you can really resonate on a pretty deep level with this message and where I find myself. And like I said, my whole path moving forward is to find and continue to nurture these soul connections where I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to make myself small. I don't have to accommodate other people in a place that makes me be less than. There are so many beautiful possibilities. Let me read that last one again, because this one is a really, really, really beautiful question to ask yourself. In the multiverse of possibilities, are you bold enough to ask, have I already leaped timelines, leaving echoes of my old self and old connections behind in lower realities? Now, lower does not mean less than. This is not less than. This is different. This is different. This is just different. And when we talk 3D compared to 5D, hence the lower realities. So that's just lower. It's not that it's a wrong decision for anyone, but I would just really challenge you to think about, have you cleared space? Are you in that place of just brilliant, beautiful wisdom that has way where I am not there yet? I'm still on this whole I'm still on this whole ride. I am full in on the wave in this ride. And I can say that for the really rough stuff that I have been brave enough to do, and I look back on some of the things that I just can't believe I've had to navigate through these past couple of years, I just see silver linings. I see gratefulness for, it's always like when you hear somebody have something really horrible that happens. Even someone who has a near-death experience, which is a horrible experience, until you you come back and you say, this, look how, I saw how things are. I see what my purpose is. And they come back and their life is different in such a beautiful way out of something so hard. A person I met about a year and a half ago was a beautiful soul. Many people might be familiar with him. His name is Daniel Brinkley. And in 1975, I believe he was struck by lightning. He died. He had a near-death experience. He went on to write a book called Saved by the Light. They made a movie out of it in the 1980s, and he's written several books. And he now does this beautiful end of life. I think it's called the Twilight Brigade, where he helps veterans transition to the next life with just love, compassion, and Daniel has actually had several near-death experiences because of the first one. It made his body, a lot weaker, and his story is brilliant. But I was grateful enough to meet him about a year and a half ago, and we were at a long weekend retreat with a small group of just beautiful people, and I actually was thinking about him because I had a beautiful conversation with my friend Michelle. Michelle, if you're watching this, I love you deeply and dearly. She is a soul connection from about 30 years. But I was telling her about Daniel because she was saying, I think might want to be a death doula. And so we kind of had this conversation, and it reminded me of Daniel and his nonprofit that he runs, helping veterans transition in such a beautiful way. So I would love to know what you think about this. Did any of this trigger you? I hope not. I hope it just made you curious. Maybe it kind of pointed you to the knowledge and the level of understanding that you're on the exact perfect place for you. Maybe you already know all this. I would just love to know what you think about this. But I hope you have a brilliant, brilliant third week of December of 2025. I only have just amazing excitement for what we are experiencing as humanity. And I hope you feel that too. So thanks so much for tuning in today, guys, and we will see you next time.